Go ahead.
Welcome to this week's episode of Marijuana Mind with yours truly, Dr. Justin Davis, and my renegade co-host, Cynthia Brewer.
Renegade. We are right next to each other, just for everyone to enjoy the duo side by side in the same office. Probably off the cuff episode, if I should say so myself.
Are we ever not off the
I
cuff?
feel like it's our thing, to be honest.
I mean, that's if you listen to us regularly, you have to like that, right? Because that's what we do. We're off the cuff.
I've been told that we are
Off the hook.
entertaining.
You're off the hook. I'm off the cuff.
I'm out of pocket, which is it's not a compliment, but I've been told by many that we are, quote, entertaining, have good charisma, and use cuss words too much.
Oh, well, that's what they say about you. The rest must be about me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Just
Watch how big your head is. This is a small office, okay?
kidding.
We have a very brief but important episode today to kind of update everyone on stuff that's happening, not just in Florida for once, but nationwide. Like there's a lot of stuff that happened this week in such a short amount of time.
It's a big marijuana week.
It's a big marijuana MFR week.
I mean, it was this week went up in smoke. It was a quick week.
Well done, Davis. Up in smoke. You are punny as fuck. All right. So I will start us off with a little bit more localized content. Our beloved, and I'm going to say this with absolutely no joking, all joking aside, Chris Ferguson, who was the director of the OMMU, was probably one of the most kind, fair directors that we've had, and one of the best persons I've had the pleasure of working with. And I don't say that because he was my regulator and I had to suck up to him, because he's not anymore. He was replaced. But I really enjoyed working with him, and I feel like he really honored the integrity of the OMMU and the cannabis program.
How did he get selected if that's the case? That seems like he was the wrong candidate to begin with for Florida.
Why would you say that?
Because Florida doesn't like people.
Oh, because he's got integrity. Well,
he was a little too good for the OMMU.
We had Christian Bax, who we adore. Christian Bax. I feel like he really came out of his shell after he left the OMMU, and he's amazing. Very good business person too. We had Courtney Coppola, who I think grew into a pretty amazing, pretty badass HBIC for Tallahassee. Now she's the chief of staff, or I think she is still. And then we had Chris Ferguson, who was probably not as well known as the other ones that had been in the industry in that program for a while, but I enjoyed working with him because he was tough, but he was fair.
All right. So you think that they've done a good choice so far with the directors of the OMMU.
Right. So why would you replace somebody that's doing well?
It's a good question. Why?
Well, there's a month. I can see what you're doing, Dr. Davis.
Christopher Kimball, right? That's the new.
Yeah, the new director of the OMMU is Christopher Kimball. He's a lawyer and former Navy officer. You know who else was a Navy officer?
Yes, I do. Our governor, right?
Daddy DeSantis was a Navy officer.
Right.
Things are getting a little odd. Chris Kimball is not a cannabis type person from what I've seen. He is strongly endorsed on LinkedIn, both personally and professionally, by Chad Bass, who was an attorney for Jeff Sessions, if that tells you anything.
So you're saying he's probably not overly canna friendly or canna knowledgeable.
I think he was placed there strategically to make sure things do or do not happen. But that's just my assumption.
So what would, I know this is just, theoretical, but what do you suppose that DeSantis would like him to do that Ferguson couldn't do?
Maybe nothing.
Better.
Maybe nothing. Maybe you put someone there to make sure that nothing happens. Because I'm just saying,
think Ferguson was going to do it.
The OMMU has been doing a lot. And now, although we are harsh on them on the show, they have been kind of getting through their to-do list pretty efficiently. The daily dose caps, they suck, but they were on that 2017 like regulate law. Article 10, section 29 of the Constitution said, here's your medical program. Now you guys are assigned to come up with the framework. And then 381,986 was for MMTCs, 381,988 for me. They came up with the framework, but implementation of all that 2017 language has taken 5 years. They're starting to chip away. Black farmer, daily dose limits, seed to sale, their on-site laboratory for the state, a confirmatory lab. The only thing they really haven't done is award new licensure.
I'm gonna interject there. I'm gonna say, before you give them too much credit on the dose caps, the limitations.
I'm not giving them credit as a good thing. I'm saying they did something that was on the list.
They
to
did it on the
do.
list, and after 5 years, which,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine, they were supposed to do that and they did it. However, it didn't say how they had to do it. And so the fact that
Or
they
what
did-
order.
So the fact that, they didn't, as far as we can tell, there was not really any real rhyme or reason, wasn't evidence-based. They don't have any doctors or patients advising them. It doesn't seem like any of that was done. It was done very under the covers, and the back alleyways, so to speak.
Lowbrow.
They
Yeah.
didn't advertise it. They didn't have to be. They're still under emergency orders. So I think, and they didn't have to do rolling limits, which they did. I
Okay.
think
Retrograde too. That was.
I think
Well,
that's problematic, actually, much more so than the limit caps are the rolling limits.
Yes. Yes. So I agree with you 100%. And I think you're right that they are cherry picking legislative directives, and they're not really thinking about what's benefiting the patient. You're picking the items that are actually hurting the patient. If you were to award more licenses and give us more opportunity for a competitive market, that would help patients, but that wouldn't help the MMTCs because they don't like that. So I don't know. I do want to give them credit for doing a lot of the things. They released the Black Farmers application and licensed one within what was that, maybe 7 months or so. I'm just saying, like, it's quicker than some things go, but I don't know. I don't feel like Chris Ferguson did anything wrong. So why does he have to be replaced?
Well, we don't know, the real
I don't.
backstories of what's going on politically. Who knows? It could be anything from there was some kind of scandal and DeSantis decided to take him out of the limelight, or maybe,
Maybe he stepped down and this is how he's been replaced. I don't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
We know nothing.
And what we do know is, there's a good chance that DeSantis and Kimball are pretty friendly.
He's a naval officer. He's a JAG friendly, like,
He's an attorney.
he's being placed there, and nobody else would place him there except for Daddy DeSantis, Papa DeSantis.
Do you think so? The OMMU, one of the things that they've been, seems like, chipping away, and we've identified as being one of the most important things we think that can be done for cannabis, both in Florida and nationwide, for safety reasons, is really making sure that there's transparency with labs, that the labs are not being controlled by the growers themselves, in this case, the dispensaries, but nationwide growers. And so that we can trust the results. We know that there's, they're not doing it for money. They're not doing it for pay.
Well, first you have to have permission, or like just be granted the ability to receive results. Right now, it's not mandatory. We do have a workshop coming up in December in Tallahassee that was rescheduled from the hurricane in October. They rescheduled it to December. And I just went over every single piece of that language for laboratories, and they are starting to close the loop that some of these laboratories have utilized to get an unfair advantage over others.
But is the OMMU going to continue on that trajectory with Kimball now that he's been there?
Well,
I guess that's the question.
They are taking the emergency rules and they are turning them into traditional run-of-the-mill rules. So they're no longer going to be emergency rules. They're adding and fixing the language that created loopholes for people to do nefarious activities as labs. It's a great thing. It's a great starting place. So I'm going to say, being Mrs. Optimistic, that this is a step in the right direction, and it has nothing to do with the swap of the director. It has everything to do with the efforts of the OMMU and the individuals that work there.
Well, Kimball's reputation is that he's tough.
Strong, professional,
Tough and will get things
endorsed by
done.
Jeff Sessions' old attorney. That's
So-
not gonna really bode well with the Floridians that
I'll
love
be
cannabis.
curious to see what he's tough on, what he thinks is important, how he runs the OMMU. And
How would you run the
I'd
OMMU
like
if
to
you were
send out
elected?
a formal invitation
Yeah.
for him to come on our show.
Oh my gosh, if he did that, it would really, I think he'd be more well received by the community if he was to join the show
Yeah,
and
let's hear
introduce
what-
himself to the community.
I'd like an introduction and to hear what he plans to do. And
I'm putting a note down right now to reach out to his people, have our people call his people and such.
yeah, it would be a good show. We'd really find out a lot more, if he came on the show. You could at least, he's not going to tell us of course, the deep dark secrets, but he will tell us his vision, and I think we'll get a better feel for who he is.
I think getting to know him as an individual will help the stigma around how he got to the place he's at. Yes. Great idea. I'll do whatever I can. Now, that was my story. Your turn. What do you got?
What do I got? Well, we do have some interest in national news, as you mentioned. There's the
Big.
first bipartisan bill that has been presented on cannabis, a standalone bill. So it's
Oh,
not-
yeah.
meaning it's not being added in as an extra little addendum. The bill is actually about cannabis, for cannabis. Now, it's not a huge bill, but the fact that there is one and it's bipartisan, that's what's huge.
And it's already on the president's desk.
Right. So it's already made it to the president's
The
desk.
president that had recently just said to everybody, hey, minor cannabis federal offenses will be forgiven. And I encourage local, my governors in the respective states to do the same, and some followed suit. And then to investigate whether or not rescheduling or descheduling is necessary. And now he's got a bill in front of him that would help the industry. Do you think he'll sign it?
I do. I think he'll sign it.
What's the meat and potatoes of it?
Basically, it's making cannabis much easier to study. So it's
Okay, research.
to research. So
Yeah.
before there was really only, was it University of Mississippi? Something very random.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't read the bill.
I think it was Mississippi.
Okay.
That could really
Yeah.
do research in it. Of course, it's very, very limited. And we're talking not like retrospect, like I'm in research groups here in Florida, but of course we can only do it by patient questionnaires and retrospective
Yeah.
analysis. And now if this bill passes, many different institutions, universities could get grants or be able to do it without the problem now is
Federal
that
grants,
you can't
federally
get
illegal.
if you're going to get a federal grant or you're a federally funded institution, you can't deal with cannabis because
Right.
it's federally illegal. And so that took pretty much every large institution that would do research out of the picture. And this would bring them back in, and it would really open up the door for cannabis to
Resources,
be
yeah.
more mainstream in terms of how people think about it, that it's not just a dangerous class 1 drug. And we could really get some solid answers on what it helps, what it doesn't help, what are the dangers of it, what are the benefits.
So is this first step for Biden's section of his, proclamation from a couple weeks ago about the research of deschedule versus reschedule? Is this like step one? It has nothing to do with it.
I think they're completely separate. I think
But
that's.
so
that
he
is something-
has to sign it. He already said, I want you guys to do more research. This is a bill saying, okay, we're gonna do more research, allow us to do it with this illegal drug. So he will sign it. He's got to sign it.
I think he will sign it.
He better sign it.
What was the whole Jeff Sessions one?
Oh, dear Lord in heaven, please forgive me for my sins. Okay, so I really am trying really hard to be nicer about things that I don't like and people that I don't like, but it just brought me so far in the opposite direction. So I'm going to try and say this as eloquently as possible because my mom raised me to be a lady. So Jeff Sessions is a dick. Okay. And he's misinformed.
Nice going, Cynthia's mom.
I feel like she would be so proud of me. And I know she's going to listen to this episode and she's going to say, that's my daughter. I love her. Yeah. It sounds like something she would say. Okay. So this week was a big week that a lot of people forgot to remember that it was on the calendar. The House Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Committee met this week to talk all things cannabis and awesome. They had some industry professionals there from, the cannabis czar from Colorado. They had the mayor from at Montgomery, Alabama, who was an incredibly intelligent man, who had very valuable insight about how the program in his respective state has rolled out and how he has been supportive of it. They had just a variety of cannabis professionals there on a panel to serve and provide testimony to the House Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Committee, which unfortunately for the viewers and everyone who was within earshot included Jeff Sessions, the very outspoken anti-cannabis out of Texas. The worst part, besides the misinformation, okay, because there were severe fact-checking problems that his staffers really should have done before they let him speak. But I'm guessing he's one of those guys who like doesn't listen to staffers. I'm pretty sure he's just like, I'm gonna write my own stuff, I'm gonna make my own facts, and it's gonna be fine. Jeff Sessions is not just misinformed about most of the stuff he said, but he did, okay, for instance, let me give you some facts from the actual meeting. He said that the cannabis nowadays is over 100 times more potent than the cannabis back when he was growing up in the 70s. Well, a lot of people say that, right? A lot of people compare cannabis as being way too potent now than it did back then. But let's just think about the facts of things. As a laboratory, yes, they probably were testing cannabis back in the 70s, but we don't know what type of methods or instrumentation they were using, and they never shared the results of that. So how do we know what the hell the potent cannabis he was talking about is for a baseline to say it's 100 times more potent? You don't know. He doesn't know. Nobody knows.
Well, I think
no one knows.
Facts or no facts is that he was trying to, he hates cannabis and he was doing everything he could to make it sound bad.
He kept calling it a drug.
You know what was interesting though, is one of the points he one of the rants that he went into was about how many more drug overdoses there have been, even, say like this year than last year, talking about fentanyl overdoses.
Oh yeah.
Well, wouldn't that be an argument for cannabis?
Well,
not against it?
Not if, okay, so since it's still Schedule 1 and you're not in favor of it, you're looking at the other things that are scheduled and how those interact with the patient or the population.
Nobody overdoses on cannabis. And in fact, we use it all the time to get people off of other controlled substances.
To the session mindset, okay, if it's still classified as a class 1, it is there with heroin. Okay, it is there with the worst of the worst. So he's going to compare it to activities with people using the worst of the worst. So he did compare it to fentanyl and heroin and how that does. Yes, those things do kill people. But just because cannabis was in that class does not mean that it is equally, it's not apples to apples. It's like apples to shotgun. Okay, this doesn't make any sense to me. This guy is so
it's contrary.
Gone.
He also used the he compared it to slavery.
Oh my God. Okay, I didn't want to get here to this point, but we have to cover this point because I wanted it to be a direct quote because I don't think people would believe me if I said it. But he went on, first he interrupted the chair of the committee who was introducing himself, the committee, and the witnesses. And he said, "I would like to speak." And the guy's like, "Oh, okay." You didn't know who it was at first, but we find out later that it was obviously Mr. Sessions. And the guy's like, "Okay, we're going to get to you. We're going to introduce the people first." So first, starting off on a really bad foot, you've got a variety of different people on this panel of witnesses providing testimony from all different backgrounds, diverse and very intellectual group of people. And you've got Jeff Sessions that finally gets his time to talk, goes on this diatribe about all false information, drugs, potency, and then says, and I'm going to quote this, incredibly offhanded comment, "The product is being marketed, sold to make money. Slavery made money, ... which was a horrible thing." Okay, so I will give him the credit that he did claim that slavery was a horrible thing. However, comparing cannabis and cannabis cultivation and those who use cannabis to slavery had not only offended the people listening like myself, and I'm just offended because I can't believe he's representing the state of Texas or anybody, and he's up on that stand. Second, the witnesses that were providing testimony, some were people of color, the people on his committee, okay, they were offended. Every single person that got to speak after that called him out for it.
I mean, here are my problems
That's
with
awesome.
that, beyond just the, sort
So
of
many
crazy
problems.
reference and comparison. I don't really know what he was trying to prove with that,
No.
but I mean, he could have said Coca-Cola, he could have said a pencil industry,
A
he could have
product
said,
is
he
being,
could have said prisons.
a
that are
product
privately
being
owned prisons.
manufactured and marketed to make money. He could have said apples,
Right.
he could have
exactly,
said
anything. Now,
lemonade.
what would have been more apropos is if he said privately owned prisons are more like, that would have been perhaps an apropos comparison.
But I'm
privately
saying
owned
everything
prisons
is
to
marketed and sold to
right?
make money.
Yes, but
Everything.
right, it's a ridiculous, you could say anything then is like slavery, anything. You could say orange juice is like slavery because
no.
they're both sold to make
You
money.
don't compare things to slavery. But the thing is he said this product, cannabis, is being marketed and sold to make money like every other, commodity in the entire United States. And then compare that commodity to another commodity. Slavery made money is not the right way to say it. You
Right.
could say that this is cannabis is marketed and sold to make money like McDonald's or t-shirts or a book.
Yes, or if he wanted to use slavery, he should have said.
You
should have said
don't.
private prisons.
Okay.
That's an apropos comparison.
But when they were
And-
talking about private prisons, they were talking about weed.
And the other irony in this is that the very act of cannabis having been so
Prohibited.
illegal, prohibited all
Yes.
these years, has affected the people that were once enslaved in the United States more than anybody else.
The disenfranchised group of the population that have been kept away from this ability to make money off of it, but also punished for it in the
Right.
history, were also those who suffered the horrible
Right.
effects of
That was the
slavery.
worst part of
This
it.
gentleman is not just like really out of pocket and completely just offhanded, just no class whatsoever, speaking out of his ass. I feel like I should be able to Baker Act a Senate or House member if I feel like they're talking like that. I'm not going to Baker Act Jeff Sessions, but I'm just saying like Jeff Sessions needs to be committed.
I have some uplifting.
Okay, thank
interesting-
God.
More uplifting news anyways. So Kentucky,
Ooh.
the governor just issued an emergency order.
Mhm.
Does that sound familiar? Only this one was to allow people to have cannabis in the state of Kentucky. Up to 8 ounces they could have on them.
I thought they didn't have legal cannabis.
They
Wait,
don't.
they have
That's
hemp.
the interesting part. But THC, high THC,
Mm.
they can now, with this emergency order, people can have up to 8 ounces, which is actually
A
pretty-
lot.
a lot, right? But cannabis is not legal. They don't even have a medically legal
Mhm.
program in
Nothing.
Kentucky, and people are being directed to go to the bordering states where it is legal and bring it back
Oh.
into Kentucky for themselves. And all they have to do
But that's
is they have to go to their local, whoever they see as their doctor, and get a little, like a handwritten certification saying, I certify you to use it. And they can go over to other states and bring it back to Kentucky and have up to 8 ounces.
but that's a
Emergency
federal
order.
crime
Well,
if you cross borders and the
It's not.
state can't protect them.
well, it's a state law that it's allowed.
Right. But
And
like,
it's a federal crime to be sold here in Florida by a dispensary. Do you
Right.
See any federal people coming to bust them?
I'm saying there isn't, okay, in the industry, we know we are working in a federally illegal substance. We're working with it. A testing lab is working with it. I'm committing a federal crime and you are committing a federal crime. And people, when we go and buy it, we're felonious.
I don't
But I'm
think anyone's
saying
gonna get
No
arrested
one's
for
going to
this.
punish us because we're doing it within our state where states have the right to do so. But if you cross over states,
You think
that's not,
is there a federal trooper that's gonna arrest you?
they might.
A federal trooper.
I'm
The
saying,
FBI would have to be waiting for an individual who just got pardoned, by the way, these same people that would get pardoned by Biden. What's the?
okay, let's look at the states around Kentucky. We've got Georgia that only has a medical program that will not allow for reciprocity. So they're not going to allow
You have
reciprocal.
Illinois, I think that's the main one, right?
Is that the closest one? I'm looking at the map right now
You're
and we've
looking
got,
at that.
this is, well, and I'm making one. I got Tennessee as Georgia's hat and they're not Canada friendly. They got hemp there. We got Kentucky over here, Paducah, shout out Paducah. What state are they gonna go to?
Illinois.
Illinois. And then on their way, do they have to cross over any non-friendly states?
I think it borders, I'm gonna.
This is where we need Dora the Explorer. You better check the map.
Map.
Where's the map? It's in your backpack.
I'm going to Kentucky, going to a fair.
We should know more
to
about
see a
geography.
señorita with flowers
You have a
in
giant
her hair.
map right over there too. Well, that's
Okay.
the thing.
So it looks like it borders quite a lot of states.
Okay, name them.
Including Illinois, Indiana,
Friendly,
Ohio.
friendly, super friendly.
West Virginia.
They are friendly. They're friendly. West Virginia has a cannabis program.
Um,
Shout out.
Tennessee, we had a big one.
Tennessee has hemp.
I'm just saying.
Well, you're not gonna go south to get Florida weed and take it back up to
Right,
Kentucky.
they're gonna go to, is it Indiana? Is that on the?
Okay, listen, you
I'm sure
also,
they're gonna go to
so we've got Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, West Virginia, and Tennessee. And out of
Maybe
those,
Missouri.
who has reciprocity?
Missouri.
Who allows out-of-state residents to purchase in their state?
Well, we know for sure Illinois is
Adult use?
adult use.
Okay, and then Indiana?
Unknown.
Okay, so Illinois, it might be adult use there, but what happens if what states do they have to go through to get to Illinois? Do they have to,
Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Maine, Maryland,
those
Massachusetts,
are the
Michigan,
states you have to
Missouri,
go through?
Missouri, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and there were.
They all have reciprocity?
These are adult use states. So
Yeah.
they don't care.
Adult use, you can go in as an adult, you can leave in as an adult, and now Kentucky is saying you can come back home as an adult with weed. Up to
So-
8 ounces of flour. How much derivatives?
So the interesting, I think the interesting thing about this is that you have to ask, why did he do that? When obviously Kentucky could be making, millions and millions, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions.
They're
of
killing it
dollars.
on the hemp game.
I propose a different reason.
Oh,
And this is just my,
Oh, my.
so don't, but my theory is that he probably wanted to legalize it there, get the money, to get the revenue, was getting a lot of political pushback and said, okay, screw you guys. I'm gonna make it legal by emergency order and people are gonna bring it back and you can't do anything about it, but you're not gonna make any money from it. And then they're gonna
Damn.
they're gonna be like, okay, fine, you made your point. At least if we're gonna have it here legally, we might as well make hundreds of millions of dollars on it. We'll legalize it.
do you
That's
think
my-
he's gonna introduce something like this, which can make everybody uncomfortable in an attempt to get full legalization immediately out the gate?
Or even if it wasn't full legalization, even if it was medical legalization, they'd still be getting a lot of tax.
I feel
dollars.
like he's honoring the public in the fact that he knows his constituents or non-constituents want weed. And so the best way to avoid exploiting his state, his growers that are currently cultivating hemp,
Mhm.
and to keep all the lowbrow bullshit and scandaliciousness away from his state, he says, go get it
Interesting
and bring it
alternative
back.
theory.
But we're not going to have MSOs. We're not going to have a crooked program and a lot of people with scandal. We don't want that. Kentucky just wants to grow hemp. We don't want to take up space in Kentucky to grow pot too, and then have all these outside people that come in. Just go get it and bring it back home and keep all the bullshit
I
away.
think it's a reasonable theory you present, except for why would they preclude having, so much tax money that they could have otherwise?
Why would he encourage
squander.
people to go across state lines to get it? Why don't you just decriminalize it in your state and not say anything else? That would be the
I mean,
same
that's
thing.
essentially what he did, right? But they're like, well, how do we get it? And he's like, you can
Go
to the
find it.
States.
And
It's
so-
fine, don't worry.
How do they know if it's legitimate weed from another state if they get pulled over with it? How do they not know it's black market weed?
What do they don't care is the point.
Okay, well,
As long as you don't have more than 8 ounces. which is-
8 ounces is a lot of weed, so
I got my sack, your
Kentucky-
Christmas sack, like your Santa Claus.
I know it's we'll call it the Louisville Slugger, an 8-ounce baseball bat filled with
That's
weed.
right.
I mean, very impressive. Well, that's all I've got as far. This was going to be a brief episode just to kind of download people between.
I
Yes.
have to give a shout out.
Oh my gosh, okay.
This shout out is to one of my childhood besties, still good friend,
Ooh,
Sarah Seidner.
Sarah Seidner.
You can catch her this Sunday on CNN, and she's had a fabulous career, amazing person. I can't say enough good things about her, but she will be interviewing Michelle Obama, and so I'm very proud of her.
proud of her. I don't even know her. Sarah, way to go, girl, on CNN
Yeah.
with the Mrs.
So
Michelle
tune
Obama.
in. I don't know the exact time, but it'll be CNN, Sarah Seidner interviewing Michelle Obama in an exclusive. So I think that everybody should watch that.
How many famous people did you go to school with? Because
No comment.
all right, I'll allow it because I've been counting and J Dog Davis, Jay Nasty, you know a lot of famous people, maybe too many.
Too many.
Maybe. Well, I'll sign off for the week. We will touch base. We got Thanksgiving next week.
That's right.
I'm
Right.
boycotting Thanksgiving and instead going to see Tom Segura, and I cannot wait.
Why couldn't you do both? Are they mutually exclusive?
Well, Tom Segura is the day after Thanksgiving, and just to boycott and just be, combative.
Oh, well, you can come have a turkey at our place.
Oh, that's adorable. I'm good. I'm going to Tom Segura. I'm probably going to make nachos.
Well, I've already bought my turkey and
Really?
Yeah.
I guess that's about right. I started putting up Christmas
I will
lights.
strongly endorse the Trader Joe's turkeys. They have a great selection, great prices as always, and they're already brined. They're
Really?
brined for you, yes.
Okay, actually, that's pretty impressive. Trader Joe's. They know how to corner the market because brining and de-thawing suck.
That's right.
Yeah, they happen, and they both happen in the bathtub at my house.
I used to brine turkeys. I would have to stick them in, like days in advance, this massive
Yes.
pot and try to get it just right with the
Yeah.
salt water. It's already brined, and all you have to do is put it in the oven. I like to slow cook it at a low temperature.
Is it already de-thawed?
You can get it, some are more de-thawed than others, but I've had this one now, for about a week or.
So
half
yeah,
of the week.
you've
So
been
yeah,
leaving,
it'll
it's
be
on the
de-thawed.
back porch.
It's de-thawed. The
Yeah.
answer is yes.
Awesome.
That's a yes.
I'll have to try some. But if we are not able to do a show on Thanksgiving, then we'll see if we can maybe record something in the meantime, unless we get canceled because Jeff Sessions just doesn't like what we say.
Can you do that?
No.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. Shalom. Shabbat shalom. Let's get some Manischewitz. I feel so Jewish today. All right. And I feel like that's a compliment, and I'm an honorary Jew for the rest of the season, and I will.
That's what it means.
Okay.
And she does love Tikkun Olam. So
I do. Heal the world. Heal the Cynthia. I'm about to get some Alaska up in here. Signing off for the Marijuana Mind. This is Cynthia Brewer. We will talk to you guys next week.
Keep it lean, keep it green as always.
Fantastic freaking episode, dude. Well done.
You're still recording.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to say hello.